Hello, and welcome to the nation. You're joining me, AILEEN Abdullah, as I come to you live from Wisma Bernama in the capital city of Kuala Lumpur. Today's topic of conversation is blue foods, safeguarding our future food supply. Now, blue foods and the waters in which they grow will have an essential role to play in the shift towards healthy, equitable, and sustainable food systems. Now, today we delve into aquaculture. Modern aquaculture is changing and adapting rapidly, and the sector is in its infancy compared to other areas of agriculture, for example. But however, this provides the opportunity to adjust quickly when necessary, and climate change is forcing the global food industry to find ways to be more sustainable, and the agriculture industry has spent many years campaigning for change to ensure longevity and sustainability for future generations. And today joining me in conversation is our guest, Professor Dr. AILEEN Tan HWAI, Director for Center for Marine and Coastal Studies, CEMACS at Universiti Sains, Malaysia. Hello, welcome, Prof. Thank you for joining us on the show and taking time out to talk to us about this topic of blue foods, and in particular talking about aquaculture. Now let's kickstart this conversation today with my first question. What is sustainable aquaculture, and why is it important, and how can it be sustained? Over to you.
Okay, hello Elaine. Thank you. It's really a great, I feel really great to be here and share some thoughts on blue food. Well, due to the pressure from overfishing and climate change, aquaculture is taking over and will continue to grow. Well, aquaculture sector comprises of a wide range of cultural practices of various species, starting from finfish, crustaceans, seaweeds, mollusks, and other aquatic organisms. Because of this, aquaculture sector is opening up the windows of opportunities for urban as well as rural areas in their socio-economic developments. Is the aquaculture industry expanding, the sector is also facing some problems like environmental degradation due to excessive feed, usage of hormones, usage of antibiotics, water scarcity, limited available land for aquaculture. We need to convert mangrove areas to aquaculture, high inputs, and etc. So sustainability in aquaculture sector is very much needed. What do you mean by sustainable aquaculture? It actually
Yep.
means aquaculture practices that focuses on environmental, economic, and social sustainability to
Right.
improve the capacity building and utilize land effectively for the aquaculture sector. If aquaculture activities are not sustainable, not only we will lose in terms of productions over years, we will also lose our natural environment, our natural resources due to pollutions, due to degradation of natural habitats and loss of biodiversity. So when it comes to sustainability in aquaculture, I think we should talk about blue foods, maybe the answer. Yeah, back to you,
Right.
Elaine.
So which comes to the next question. What is blue food? What's the definition of blue food, Prof?
Well, in simple definition, blue food is food derived from aquatic animals, plants or algae that are caught or cultivated in freshwater and marine environments.
Right.
Blue food is also referring to aquatic food and its role in supporting health, livelihood, and sustainability. Now, blue food actually provides high nutritional value, has great aquaculture potential, and has great impacts of the environment. Yeah.
So which then begs the question: why is blue food vital, and how can it ensure the future of global food security, or even not global, at least for Malaysia? What are your thoughts on this?
Okay. Well, although fish, yeah, when I mention fish here, means it covers the whole range. It can be fish, crustaceans, algae, and echinoderm and other marine organism. But we actually categorize it as fish. So although fish is important, only 1 in 5 people depend on fish as a vital source of protein, as well as micronutrients in their diets. In earlier days, Elaine, people eat fish almost every day
Right.
because it is one of the cheapest protein source. But
Right.
now, We hardly eat fish on a daily basis due to its price and also the
Exactly.
reduction in variety.
Yep,
You know,
yep.
foods from below water are rich in micronutrients that humans need. Boosting their role in the global food system will actually improve the health and well-being of the world's growing population. Blue food is actually about culturing and consuming aquatic food, which are positioned in a lower trophic level. The food web is a triangle food web. At the
Mm,
lower trophic level, for example, the lowest trophic level depend very much on sunlight, and then
mm,
the first consumer depends on the primary producer, which is the plants, and blue food is actually talking more on concentrating on the lower trophic level. For example, the marine algae, the marine organisms such as mollusks like oysters, mussel, cockles, or sea cucumber in the echinoderm group. Seafood such as prawns, yeah, or sea bass and tilapia are classified as low in sustainability and nutrition. Salmon, a lot of us um go wow, when we have the opportunity to eat salmon. But actually salmon, although it's high in nutritional value, but
mm.
it is low in sustainability. So we need to actually classify what is important, what is high nutrition, and what is low in sustainability. Highest in sustainability and highest in nutrition value are the anchovies, mollusks, sardines, and mackerel, those small fish at the lower trophic level. So it
Right.
is high time for us actually to shift our diets for sustainability and climate change and place the aquatic food, which is the blue food, at the center on our table now.
So that's really one of the difficult things in terms of we spoke about this before we went on a show as well, behavioral change, because consumption is a behavioral change in terms of what we
Yes.
think is a viable food source, what we think is tasty, what we think we want to eat, because a lot of times we are we choose food because we feel like it, not because we need it, not because it's good for us. It's like how we eat a lot of unhealthy food, even though it is not beneficial for us in the long term, but because it's heavily laden with those flavor profiles, whether it's chemically induced, whether or not it is, done because it's deep fried, so it's tastier. We choose foods not based on knowledge or education or exposure, but we choose food either because it's convenient, it's cheap, like as in readily available, and whatever that is promoted heavily in the society or in the ecosystem that you're in. So I like that you've mentioned that we need to look at those categories. What is sustainable does not necessarily mean, oh sorry, what's readily available does not mean it's sustainable. And the environment degradation is what a lot of people don't see with regards to the choices that are made for what aquaculture farming has chosen to take on, that's made readily available. And just because that there's more of this doesn't mean that that's actually better for us. So how do we manage this? How do we balance the ecosystem? How do we start this process? And if we are talking about just our very own backyards, Prof.
Okay, you are so right in terms of choosing the food. We are fortunate. Malaysians, most of us are fortunate because we have the options to choose, and most of the time, not only due to cheap convenience, we are also because of it's trendy. Part of it. People are talking about eating salmon rather than eating our own local food. Local
Exactly.
fish. For
Imported food
example,
seems to be better imported.
yes, yes. And then, like for example, during any Malaysian festive seasons or celebration, we have this mentality that expensive prawns, crabs, or fish must be served.
Mm,
And it's a way of showing the status, of the event. So it's
right.
even though it's really costly without even thinking much of the nutritional value.
Yeah.
Even though blue food plays a more important role in creating healthy food and are more sustainable, blue food is still greatly underutilized and under researched as part of the holistic food-based nutrition interventions. Most of the aquaculture that we are doing is focusing mainly on the food that is giving more return in investment. The
Yeah.
expense like prawns, they can sell it very high price, and then groupers rather than what I mentioned earlier, like anchovies, mackerel. Those are small fishes and not expensive. So we have these issues of investors or farmers. They would look into more of the expensive food, which might not be the activities in culturing them might not actually um, um, giving good impacts. They actually create negative impacts to the environment, and of all the nutritional value is not as good compared to macroalgae or small fishes. For example, yeah, many prawn culturists, prawn fish a very good price. Most of the culturists will explore new areas of culturing prawns. After several years of operation, they have to move to a new area because the culture area is no longer fertile,
Fertile.
fertile to culture for
Yeah.
prawns. So therefore, because of the demand for prawns, we are actually asking for more mangrove needs to be cut and destroyed to create more culture ponds. That is the issues that we are facing. How do we balance it? Investor and farmers are focusing on expensive seafood because of
So,
its
so this
return
is
in
this is a
investment.
tough conversation, Doc, because at the end of the day, it's driven by profitability. It's driven by a commercial gain because
Yes,
whoever
yes.
that's doing this are doing this for that end goal or the end benefit. That bottom line is what it is. So, what are the options available? Are we talking about intervention via government policies? Are we talking about having some kind of like how carbon footprint is? How do you foresee creating this kind of an incentive to spur towards considering this as a viable option? Because like you said, because the choices are made on profitability, we have now, as you mentioned, in the past we used to eat fish every day. Now no longer, because the prices have gone so sky high that in order for us to choose a plate of fish even at a restaurant, we're like, oh gosh, it costs so much money, I'll just do chicken or I'll just do something
Yes.
else. And in the end, you lose that opportunity to gain those nutrients in your body, and you also make that sort of like that gap and the disparity. You further push those prices even further because you're creating that sort of like supply and demand mentality. So what are your thoughts in terms of generating this kind of a start process? Is it, like I said, is it government intervention, is it policies? How do we start this?
Well, it has to start from the science intervention, to safeguard our future food for the people. There's an urgent call for the science that we need, for the transformation. We want to put the blue food on the table. Science, the science that we need, such as diversifying the sector from the markets, diversifying the farming practices, diversifying the species we culture. And of course, we need to hold hands with the local government support. Government support is much needed, and the involvement of the corporate partners, joining hands to ensure people, profit, and plan are in place. And um, of course, many times, the fundings, if we were to encourage growers, especially the smallholder farmers, to be involved, like the statement, shared prosperity. We want
Mm,
all to be involved and have earned a good livelihood. The fundings have to be provided for the smallholder farmers and all the communities. But then fundings are always an issue. Funding needs to be sustainable. Questions or issues are not solved the moment the funding stop. So that is why the local government, the ministries have to be involved and understand what is needed and what can be the awareness, understanding and creating a balance between profit and taking care of Mother Earth is important. The real
I,
challenge would be the aquaculturists, the consumers, and the academics and the local government and the policy makers. Yeah.
yeah. I wanted to sort of interject because I guess the biggest or the strongest movement that can occur with this is the individual itself. Because, like you mentioned earlier, not a lot of people think, oh, I'm one person. What can I do to make a difference? But can you imagine if all, say, for example, 10 we are 32 million in population. Half of it is of course children. But if we're talking about 20 million people say, I don't want to eat this and I'm not going to buy this essentially will change the consumption behavior and force, say for example, like, okay, let's put more of this blue foods, as you mentioned, on the table as an option, because it's no longer sustainable in long term. But that behavior must change. We all are run by our taste buds with regards to what we're used to and what we want to see on the table and what we prefer. But there needs to be some kind of a movement. I remember reading this a long time ago, like in Italy, McDonald's is not really favored because the people there are very used to wanting real food, Italian food. They don't want fast food. So it's a possible outcome if we, as a movement, as people itself, change and look towards that. So do you have some thoughts on how, whether this can be something that we're looking at?
I think you have raised a very good question and concern. Malaysia has our shared prosperity vision 2030, the SPV 2030. We can use this as an opportunity through using blue food as a means to actually reduce the income gaps and also ensuring food security for the nation, by putting blue food as one of the key initiatives to improve the standard of living, and at the same time providing healthy food, safeguarding the environment, as well as, in fact, actually if we would really understand the concept of sustainable aquaculture and blue food, it actually contribute to a number of SDGs. For example, poverty, hunger, nutrition, health, gender employment, sustainable production, climate, marine and land-based resources. All this, and the indirect contribution of blue food is actually education, clean water, innovation, equity, urban development, and partnership. If we were to incorporate all these benefits of blue food and sustainable aquaculture into the Malaysia's shared prosperity vision, I think we can actually move the agenda and improve the standard of living for all, regardless of you are the big industry or the smallholders farmers. I think, we have the platform. It's just that we need to actually put blue food in the right position, and actually to educate the policymaker to make it happen.
I think
Back
there
to
is
you.
also a role to play with regards to those that is you're talking about corporations that are involved in this, because I think one of the things that a lot of people learn during this whole pandemic lockdown, a lot of us realize the priorities in life with regards to what's important, and just because you have that much more funds or that much more money or are wealthier doesn't necessarily mean that you're now able to live that different life. And then you'll see that a lot of people, even like when it first happened, celebrities said that, oh, like Madonna, she's a celebrity but she's stuck in her home, she can't do anything. But that's the one thing that people don't realize, that as a global citizen, we're all connected. What happens to you will trickle down and affect the next person, that in a long roundabout way for some will still affect you in the long run, about how it would change your quality of life. So I guess what I'm saying is that in terms of corporations, there needs to be some kind of social responsibility as well, with regards to sort of tempering that commercial gain. Everybody needs some commercial gain for us to be able to find that profit or loss to balance that. You can't be running something at a loss. It's kind of a pointless exercise. But I think as individuals, everybody can do their part, including corporations, to, like you said, work towards that shared prosperity vision. But I think the system really needs to change in order for this to be effective. We are so entrenched in our way of life, entrenched in the system, that everybody is chasing that next percentage of profitability. If you earn 1% today, you want to earn 2% tomorrow, and you just keep pushing. And the systems that create KPI systems are not beneficial in the long term as well. You're not maintaining or sustainable in the long run, because you want more for the next day, as opposed to creating a stable platform. What are your thoughts on this, Don?
Well, pertaining to aquaculture, of course, the industry player would want to venture into culturing expensive food. So they, like what you have mentioned, it all boils down to dollar and cents. How much return can they get, for the investment, into culturing the species, the choices of species. But then that only benefits a small percentage of the population, in Malaysia and also globally. Therefore, I think, the relevant departments have to step in to actually encourage, and those local communities, the coastal communities, for example, the bottom billions, to actually still able to have the opportunity to venture into aquaculture. But of course, their aquaculture would not be on a big scale as the industrial player, but they can do their activities in a small scale, culturing food, fish that is high in nutrition, and they can actually sell it in a lower price to be consumed by the bottom billions and by most of the communities, rather than, not many people can afford to eat groupers, or salmon, but if you were to culture fish at the cheaper price that is fetch, even though the return of investment is low, but at least everyone is no one is left behind, in the activities of pushing blue food onto the table.
I'm very encouraged by a lot of other avenues that are looking towards social enterprises. So perhaps social enterprises are an option for aquaculture to be the next platform. There are a lot of social enterprises that are coming forth to help in a lot of areas. A couple of days ago, last week, we spoke to people who were assisting with orang aslis, and there are those that are helping with food waste and repurposing food waste in the system so that it doesn't go to waste. So perhaps social enterprises, which perhaps gets grants and funding from the government, is an option for us to be able to put blue foods on the table. Your thoughts, Prof?
Yeah, thank you, Elaine. Recently, I've just shared with my own personal experience. Recently, I received a grant from the Ministry of Higher Education. The grant was given not for research, but was given to translate the research being generated at the university to be shared with the community. This grant is on oyster farming. So I managed, this fund was used to actually encourage more entrepreneurs from the local communities, especially the coastal communities. And one of the criteria for participation, they must falls into the bottom billion category. And what we do was, we actually, from the 30 years of research, we has actually customize it into biteable size that can be used by the community, to actually generate their own income. We start them off with doing it on a part-time basis.
Mm.
After, when they are more confident and more skill, then they will convert it to their full-time basis, and we have success stories from there. We have social entrepreneurs now, not only culturing the oysters, but they are now converting their setup into ecotourism.
Oh,
So they,
wow.
they use they use the farming as a tourism attraction. So I think that's fantastic. You start small, and then they of course, with the funding from the government, they start small and they're able to become entrepreneurs.
So there are opportunities
Yes.
available. We need to be able to put the effort and the time into it in order for us to be able to see those results. But I think at the end, the commitment is the most important thing. Are we committed enough to want to create this alternative future for food security? Because food security is a big topic, because a lot of we are so dependent on import. We are so dependent on external food sources. If, like for example, what has happened in the pandemic, something even more drastic happens, we are left very much sorely lacking, stranded. If the food doesn't come in, we will see food shortages in massive scales, because those numbers are really, really difficult to be able to manage. But we are coming to the close of this session, and I would like to ask whether, Doc, you'd like to have any final words before we finish this session today.
Yeah, thank you, Elaine. Apart from the SPV Shared Prosperity Vision 2030, Blue Food may be able to spearhead the transition of Malaysian economy to a more sustainable one through blue economy as aspired in the 12th Malaysian Plan. And the take-home message that I would like to emphasize here is we need to seriously look at the blue transformation of blue food to actions, bringing the findings from research to actions, focusing more on people-centric solutions for and with the people, following the tagline "Leaving no one behind" to support health, livelihood, and sustainability. Okay, over to you, Elaine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof, for sharing your thoughts here today with us. It's been a pleasure. We really hope to see blue foods on the table soon enough, especially for Chinese New Year. Who knows?
Yes,
One of these
yes.
days. Thank you so much. Now, we were speaking to Professor Dr. AILEEN Tan HWAI, Director, Center for Marine and Coastal Studies, or CEMACS, from University Sains, Malaysia. We were speaking about the topic of blue foods, safeguarding our future food supply. Now, climate change will require fundamentally new approaches to aquaculture and to blue foods in general. Now, as the climate becomes more variable, new production technologies and risk-sharing technologies to cope become more crucial. There is no doubt that aquaculture impacts positively on the general economy, and that sustainable engagement for countries in this activity will be beneficial in the long run. Now, thank you for staying with me till the end of this episode of The Nation. You've been with me, Elaine Abdullah. Bye for now.